If you advocate for a gun-free zone, every 14 people that die in one, 10 of them are on you, because we should have had guns in there and they should have had people that were allowed to defend those students in there, and they didn't.
Let me read another quote to you and get your thoughts on this, which I think is going to kind of fuel a lot of what you're saying. And that is, you mentioned Parkland. You met the motivation there of a lot of individuals, especially the family members that joined a lot of groups. And one of those is Gail Schwartz. Her nephew, of course, was one of those killed in that horrible shooting. The Supreme Court, now controlled by the NRA in the same way our governor and our legislature, has fundamentally failed the people of Florida, she says in her press release. Is that, okay, everything you said talked about the wording of this. That is how I read it as well. Like, wait, this is so deceptive. She goes to the fundamental, the NRA boogeymans of DeSantis, your Florida legislation, and then, of course, the Florida Supreme Court. What is sort of like the political structure of all of that and the role of the NRA, even in Florida politics, to be a partner in making this go away at this phase? Because it seems like we're still very early on in the phase with this.
I think the NRA as a political organization it doesn't have as much to do with what happens on the Supreme Court level when it comes to things like this. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm sure they did an amicus brief and they put their position out there. But at the same time, what is the NRA in all reality other than an organization, the largest organization of gun owners across the country? So whenever she says NRA, what she really means is gun owners. Gun owners have control over DeSantis. Gun owners have control over the Florida Supreme Court or whatever. That's really what she's doing. Instead of being able to say, you know, I'm opposed to these other citizens owning and possessing firearms, and I would like to use the force of government to have them those weapons confiscated, which definitely isn't very palatable, even though that's exactly what she means. Now, don't get me wrong. I do feel for the woman. I really feel bad that she has a relative that died in Parkland, but her relative dying in Parkland does not mean that you get to send police to my house with guns to confiscate my weapons because they're too scary for you. In all reality, the real problem and why all those kids died in Parkland has more to do with the fact that we have gun-free zones and not that we have too many guns. The thing is that the real problem is that we are allowing kids in gun-free zones where they could go in there and start shooting and killing at will, and there's no problem whatsoever. Like, then we have, a scared cop that's a coward that that's supposed to man the place. How about we have people that are carrying concealed there so the shooter wouldn't know where the resistance is going to be at? Most of these shooters are cowards, so in all reality, it would deter a lot of this stuff from happening. The real solution isn't even one that we're discussing in this, because all they're trying to do is ban weapons. And I mean, I think the thing is this: you want to blame the NRA. In all reality, what you're doing is you're actually blaming lawful gun owners, is what you're blaming. And the NRA is milquetoast as an organization at best.
Milquetoast. Alex Snitker breaking it down for us. You blame the NRA, you're basically just blaming gun owners. I think that is a very, very fair assessment. I think that really is maybe the underlying theme and motivation behind Gail Schwartz and her comments. Alex, I want to ask you, because, with your experience working in Tallahassee, trying to kind of, I don't want to say lobby, but just kind of make influences on votes and reach out with different politicians, those kinds of things here in Florida. They made their comment definitely at the bottom of one of the reports. They're talking about that they'd raised $2 million to get it to this point. Of course, they kind of have to go back to square one, that kind of thing. Is $2 million the amount of money it takes to kind of get this kind of thing to that amendment level? I mean, does it take that much cash to sort of kind of pull something like this together?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, it takes a lot of money to get a ballot initiative on the ballot. It takes a lot of money. I mean, unless there is an overwhelming amount of support out there that is active support. And let me explain the difference between it. Is that in order to get a petition on the ballot, you have to go out and collect signatures. Now, you have to collect a lot of signatures. And typically those signatures are collected by people that are being paid in order to collect those petitions. So you really have to have paid people to do it. So a lot of that money is actually going towards people that are going to walk out there and get the petitions done themselves, because I really don't care what the initiative is. There really isn't a support out there where people are just, well, let me go to the online and print this thing out and sign it and send it back in right away. Like, not nearly enough people do stuff like that in order to get something onto the ballot. I don't care what the issue is. And because there's a couple different ways to get this on the ballot, one of them being the petition process, and that's the only way that was viable for this. Like, the legislature was never going to put this on the ballot. The commission that met every 20 years wasn't going to put this on the ballot. Like, the only way this is going to be done is going to be through citizens initiative, where they're going to go out and get the petitions done. The only way they're going to get done is this. So, I mean, we'll see what happens in the 2022 cycle, but I think that they had one shot at this. I think that they screwed it all up. I still think that they got some of the stuff they wanted out of it anyway, so I don't know how effective it'll be for 2022, depending on who wins the president. I hate to say this because it sounds a little weird to say it this way, but I think depending on who wins the presidency and what the makeup of Congress and the Senate is, may add some fuel to the fire to get them going. But I really don't think so. I really think at the end of the day, they were going to strike while the iron was hot. They screwed it up, and I don't think they're going to get anything done with it now.
Let me ask a little bit more on the financial part of that kind of thing. So again, it is true though, right? So they basically, like, the $2 million is pretty much shot. They paid all these people. They've gathered signatures. They move it along. Supreme Court says nay. The nay strikes it down. That's just money gone, right? There's probably how did they create a PAC or a fund? How do they sort of like raise money for that initiative? Is it done through the groups themselves? I mean, how does the money move around for these types of initiatives?
Well, they form some kind of a political action committee, and then the money gets funneled into that political action committee and out from there. And if they were paying petitioners, then they were getting paid through that political action committee, or through I forget exactly what they call it. I don't think it's actually called a PAC. But they do form a committee, and they run it through there. There's other organizations that can help as well, and they can also funnel money over to the main organization that's running the ballot initiative. So imagine that every town, or whatever the name of the gun grabbing group that was really behind it, they funneled money into the Florida organization in order to go out and get those petitions done. So yeah, the money, more than likely, the money was already spent. They may have more money left, like they may not have spent all their money, but I would imagine they probably spent most of their money, and they're going to have to start over. But I mean, the one I hate to say positive for them is negative for every law-abiding gun owner in the country. But the one positive thing for them is that I think there's a lot of money, between what Bloomberg spends and what there's a lot of gun-grabbing organizations out there that want to see these things get on ballots. Florida is considered to be a large bellwether state that's kind of in play a lot of times, where the Democrats think that they can win elections here. So I think that you're going to see work towards this again, but I just don't know how successful they're going to be, though, at this point, though. I mean, I could be wrong, and they could be wildly successful, but I just, especially if the Florida legislature doesn't actually fix the underlying issue that they're able to point to in order to gin up the support for this, because there is a problem and it does need to be addressed, but the Florida legislature didn't really fully address it the last time.
Let me ask you about what happened after Parkland, because I thought there was some sort of legislation or some sort of move that they did, even if it was rather watered down, talked about maybe security cards being there, different things. I don't really know exactly what was done. Was there anything done? And if so, has that proved to be effective? In other words, I don't think we really had any major terrorist attack, mass shooting type instances since Parkland here in Florida.
No, so I think it was SB 7026. It was like the Parkland bill that they did. So they did do a bill. That bill made it illegal for 18-year-olds from 18 to 21 in order to purchase long guns unless it was given to them by like a relative or something like that. There was a lot of school things, a lot of some different school resources that they've allocated. They did start the Guardian program. The Guardian program is a double opt-in program where the sheriff has to opt in and the county school board has to opt in for it. And what that is, where they put, they allow for teachers to carry concealed in the schools. Why I say it was a watered down approach is that they should have actually just allowed for this, because it was a lot cheaper in order to put teachers in there and allow them to carry weapons than it was to just put resource officers in every school. I think they did add money for the school resource program as well, and they heightened the red flag laws. They put a lot more into the red flag laws, which that's another thing I wouldn't, again, wasn't necessarily solving the problem, but it was one of the things that they were really crying for. Now, I will say this for the Florida legislature: there's a lot of people on the right, the pro-gun people, that were very angry with the Florida legislature for what they did. And while at the end of the day they did what's the word for it? They did capitulate to some things. What they did do, what I would say is what most of the times politicians do, is they do the least amount that they have to do in order to get people to go away. And I think that's what the Florida legislature ended up doing, that they didn't really want to do any of it, but they did the least amount that they had to do in order to get it solved.